The American invasion of Afghanistan began way back in October of 2001 in response, of course, to 9/11. Afghans were sheltering Saudis who committed the terror attacks. They were trained there. The question is, why do we still have troops there almost 20 years later? And the answer is not for national security reasons, but because our leaders see Afghanistan as a handy place to conduct a kind of social science experiment, the kind that George Soros might fund. Our leaders believe Afghanistan must be bombed into submission so that its culture changes. Maybe we should bomb them until they accept gender-neutral pronouns. That may be one of the objectives over at the Pentagon. The latest evidence comes from Vox.com. At a recent meeting, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the hopelessly over his head and extremely liberal Mark Milley, got emotional during a meeting about withdrawing from Afghanistan. "We can't do this," Milley said. "If we leave Afghanistan, women's rights will, quote, go back to the Stone Age." So even at the Biden White House, people asked, well, what does that have to do with our national security objectives? One White House official called Milley's little speech, quote, a lot more emotion than substance, and said it wasn't, quote, super logical. But there is a logic to it, and the U.S. government, the Pentagon, and the State Department, both of which have been hopelessly captured by the left while we weren't paying attention, they've been implementing these plans around the world, and particularly in Afghanistan. A report last month from the Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction outlines our government's efforts to achieve, quote, gender equality in Afghanistan. Bet you didn't think that was part of the mission, did you? You thought it was defeating terror. No, it was changing the traditional Afghan family structure. That was the real goal. Why is that our business? Why is that our job? Isn't that cultural imperialism? Shut up. We're doing it anyway. The report notes that the U.S. government has dispersed, quote, more than $787.4 million for activities to, quote, support Afghan women and girls. Now, that doesn't sound bad. Everyone's for women and girls. Has it improved their lives? Has bringing third-wave feminism to Afghanistan been good for the people of Afghanistan? Well, there's no evidence that it has. It's caused a lot of disruption. The Inspector General's report notes, among other things, that there is no word for gender or gender equality in any of the languages used in Afghanistan. It's just not their culture. We don't care. The Inspector General also found that our quota system for female politicians in Afghanistan, bet you didn't think we had one of those, but we do, it hasn't worked. In fact, it's backfired. Many of these politicians have never even visited the provinces they, quote, represent. What the hell are we doing? And why are we using the military to do it? Colonel Doug MacGregor is a combat veteran, a former senior advisor to the Secretary of Defense. He's been around this world his entire life. He joins us now to explain. Doug, thanks so much for coming on tonight. Why are we using the military to change the Afghan family structure?
Well, I know the justifications sound lofty and moral, but in reality, they fall flat. Afghanistan over the last 20 years has become the leading supplier of illegal heroin in the world. The heroin production industry in Afghanistan employs at least 400,000 Afghans, more people than are in the Afghan military and security police. So it's hard to take that seriously. I think the real point is as follows. We have a globalist ruling elite in Washington, D.C. It now includes the senior leadership in the Pentagon, as well as the State Department, the intelligence community, people on the Hill. And they've decided that wherever we can, we should always intervene. We've institutionalized interventionism. And these interventions can never end, that once you intervene, you have to stay, because privately, I think everyone knows that the moment that you withdraw or disengage, a couple of things happen. Number one, everything you claim to have achieved falls apart instantly. And then secondly, it puts the force structure, whether it's in the Marines or the Army or Special Operations Command or anything else, at risk. So you have incentives in a perverse sort of way to do the wrong thing in perpetuity.
But, I mean, it's our military. We can't allow this. And I know that you have fought against this kind of thing for decades, and I really appreciate it. And I'm glad to see you back on this show. Douglas MacGregor, thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you, Tucker.